Day 26. Free. The seagulls glided in the bright blue sky, not rushing, making sure not to miss anything on the dock below. Some days the fishermen were very successful and didn't mind losing a herring here and there as they unloaded. Today was not one of those days. In fact, the fishing had been poor for some time. The last wheat crop, too. Nobody was buying the kingdom's fabric, and the less said about the mining, the better. "It's all gone a cock," said one of the fishermen, sitting on a coil of rope and picking his teeth with a splinter. "Aye, be that," said another. He was suddenly hit over the head and shoulders with an empty lobster trap. His wife was screeching. "You get yourself home if you're not going to do any bloody work. You can be a bloody rag and bone man for all I care, but you'll not let your children starve." "Ain't no rags nor bones to be had, missus," said the first fisherman. "You can shut your crab cage and all," she added, before shoving her husband down the street, muttering about the idleness of seafarers. But none were quite so idle as the king. He spent his days, which started after lunch, eating, hunting, napping, hawking, a little of this, a little of that. So little of everything, in fact, that he never really mastered anything. He loved nothing more than starting a new hobby, only to give it up later the same afternoon. His castle was full of painters' easels, self-winding crossbows, smiths' tools, and model railways. None of it could keep his attention for long. Least of all, matters of state. "My liege," a grey-suited servant with very high white socks had appeared. "Hmm?" managed the king. "Highness, the kingdom is broke."
"Broken?" said the king, raising a finger. "The word is broken. See here, I have a dictionary somewhere."
He tried his best to rummage through the mess in his chamber, but succeeded only in knocking over a potter's wheel and a full set of armour. The servant waited with closed eyes until the clanging stopped. "No, sire, we have no money. The kingdom is bankrupt." The king had found the dictionary, eyeing the servant over its pages. He flicked through to B and found the word. He went a bit green.
How is that possible? We have the best fishermen in the world."
"They're not biting, sire."
"Well, the wheat then."
"Fungus." The king cast a glance at the dictionary again. The servant helped, as servants do. "It went bad, my liege."
"Ah, bugger. We've got the cloth mills, though."
"Your highness is correct, as always. Alas, his favourite colour is no longer in fashion, it seems. We have reams and reams still lying in warehouses."
"Rot! Everyone looks good in green,"
roared the king. The servant didn't try to argue. The king deflated.
"And the mines?"
he asked, feebly. "The less said about those, the better." The king collapsed into a chair. He had to push a barely touched trumpet off it first, and put his head in his hands.
"This is the worst day of my reign,"
said the king. The servant came over to rest a hand on his shoulder. There, he said. "There's more." The king looked up at him.
"More?"
"History tells us, sire, that a king's people are really only his people when their bellies are full and they have shirts on their backs."
"So we throw a picnic and I've got loads of old shirts I don't want any more? Somewhere."
"No, your highness," said the servant, dropping to a knee and dropping his voice alongside. "I'm talking about revolution." 10 minutes later, after finding the word in the dictionary, the king had grabbed his longest cloak and his highest boots and was marching down the hill from the castle with the servant trotting along behind him. When they reached the square by the dock, the king realised he'd never actually been there before.
"You know, I don't think I've been here before,"
he confirmed. The servant bowed, as servants do. From one of the small, dirty doorways, the fisherman from earlier was hurled out by the wife, I'm sure we remember.
"Get out there and make some scratch. You're as lazy as that bloody king."
She froze when she saw her monarch, and her eyes went wide. So did her husband's, because he assumed he would get it in the neck for this too, probably literally. Then they both pressed their noses to the ground. The servant spoke sideways out of his mouth. "See, Your Highness? They're not happy."
"Right, up," commanded the king. "Come on, up."
The fisherman and his wife stood to attention. The king frowned at them both.
"Are you thinking about Renvertuschen?"
"Revolution, Highness," supplied the servant.
"Yes, that."
The fisherman and his wife dared to look at each other. They wondered if it wasn't a trick question. In some languages, a trick question is called a little hook, which would have been much better in this scenario given their profession, but never mind.
"Well?" demanded the king. "Do you wish not to be my people any longer?"
There was a crowd gathering now. The king had only made it through half of one karate lesson, but the servant had picked up a bit and assumed a stance.
"Well," continued the king, "I'll save you the trouble. You're free!"
The word rang out like a scythe.
"We're what, Your Majesty?"
asked the fisherman's wife.
"Free! Free to do whatever you want."
"What do we want, Highness?"
asked that other fisherman, still with a splinter between his teeth. The king didn't understand.
"I don't understand. You are no longer my people. You don't have to do what I tell you, and more importantly, I don't have to tell you what to do."
The people looked disconcerted. The servant looked mortified. "So, what will you do, sire? And will you need any help?" The king looked at a herring lying on top of a barrel for inspiration, but found none.
"You know, I haven't the foggiest,"